Hey everybody, welcome to this issue of Staffing Monthly, where we are deeply focused on sales and best practices for improving your sales process, your sales productivity, and your sales results. But I want to take a moment to actually land on a resource that I think is really, really cool. And if you're familiar with Staffing Monthly, you know that we are the digital publication to bring you thought leadership and insights in the areas of recruiting, sales and marketing, and leadership in the staffing industry. And we also pride ourselves in spotlighting the resources that we think are up and coming and can have a major impact in our industry. And that's what we're going to be doing today. I stumbled across a LinkedIn post about a software product, I'll call it, called Dwight. And it was fun and it seemed kind of interesting. And I inquired about it. And what I learned absolutely blew my mind. Like, I felt like where we were in this industry with AI, automation, and like connecting softwares together in our tech stack, like I felt like we sort of had, I don't say plateaued, and then there's a ton of stuff coming on the pipeline. I never expected this level of proficiency from a software so quickly, so readily available right now. So I had to welcome the founder, who is actually the founder and managing director of chatautomation.com, Dries De Coster. He's actually been in the human capital management software industry for a while, and he's actually worked with some pretty sizable entities like the Access Group and SAP SuccessFactors, Thomsons. This guy's been around and he knows software, he knows human capital management, so it's no surprise that he's put together Dwight. And before I spill all of the candy in the lobby here, I'm going to turn it over to you, Dries. Welcome for being here, and thank you for showing our audience all about Dwight and the cool thing you're working on today.
No, thank you, Dan. And what an intro, by the way. No, I had one of those before. So thank you very much. In case people are wondering, it's a Belgian name. Yes, I have a British accent. I live in the UK, but I'm pleased to visit your country very regularly, and actually was in Dallas just last week. So yeah, we do two things, but purely focused on staffing agencies. We do conversational AI, chatbot technology, and then we have Dwight, as you spotlighted there, Dan. And Dwight really is a digital worker bot who works 24/7. We do process automation of existing processes over existing systems, but at a fraction of an FTE cost. And a lot of what we do, there's definitely some sales enablement examples that we'll walk through. But a heck of a lot of what we do is actually looking at the less sexy stuff almost in a staffing agency around onboarding, compliance, doing credentialing. So those kind of middle, but then also back office processes like time automation or even VMSs. So actually extracting time from VMS platforms. Oftentimes we come across 14, 15, 20 different VMS systems our clients use, export the time information, do validation, then put it into the pay and bill system. So anything really where there's logic is kind of where Dwight lives in terms of the process.
And that was one of the things that actually drew me to it, Dries, is that we talk about how amazing our people are, right? In the staffing industry, we get asked the question a lot, like, why are you different than, ABC competitor, right? And why should I choose you? And a lot of times staffing agencies have a really hard time differentiating themselves. So the default answer is, well, our people, right?
Yeah.
And that's true. Like, we all have really good people. Unfortunately, sometimes even the best producers are bogged down with medial tasks and
Correct.
repetitive tasks.
Yeah.
And as you probably are aware, they don't love that. Producers want to produce. And that's one of the reasons I was really drawn to what you're working on here.
Yeah, and digital workers actually was a hot topic last week when I was at the SIA forum, the aforementioned one.
Yes.
A lot of the time it's applied at the kind of top of funnel stuff, but as I say, we kind of uniquely are carving out in the middle and back office. But you're absolutely right. When you look at recruiter productivity, what do recruiters want to do as salespeople? We're all salespeople. We enjoy talking to people. We don't enjoy having to do data entry and some of the follow-up kind of processes that often come with the job. And actually one of the automations we're standing up at the moment is just doing that, is where recruiters were spending an hour and a half, 2 hours per day finding open vacancies for their temporary candidates that they had already placed, and kind of getting it out of the system, emailing them to say, hey, these are some of the open vacancies we have, with a view of obviously then replacing the candidates. Automating simple things like that can make a huge difference. In that case, actually, that's going to be a 5 FTE equivalent saving. just doing that, right? So again, freeing up the whole topic of what you were talking about earlier, freeing up your sellers to sell.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually I'm glad you hit on that one too, because I feel like redeployment is something that most agencies don't really emphasize or focus on. And it's always baffled me a little bit that why we don't prioritize this more, because if you've deployed them once, that
Yeah.
means they were a fit. And if they worked and they completed an assignment and they're eligible for rehire, that's some of the best talent that you're ever going
Right.
to get. That's probably better than what you might find, on a job board or somewhere else, so if you have, but it's hard, right? It is hard to do what you say because it's time consuming and it's tedious. So if you
It's
can,
time consuming, but if you look at, you mentioned, for example, that some of the software houses I've worked at, and one of our key focus areas for growth was actually what we called upsell and cross sell, because the hardest, most expensive thing is to find a client, but it's actually easier to upsell and cross sell. And if you take that analogy into the candidate sphere, the hardest thing is to convince the candidate to actually trust you for the placement. Once they've had a good experience, it's much easier to place them again. So, absolutely, I would encourage people to, focus time and effort on that, because it's an easier pound or a dollar to go and build than it is for a brand new candidate or client.
yeah, and you don't got to pay for them the second time.
Correct.
Typically there's an applicant, a cost of applicant associated when you get them in the first time, and if you redeploy them, that goes away. So incrementally, your margin gets better over time. So that's really where agencies that are struggling with sales, how you can free up your producers to do some of this. This will give you that revenue lift and bring in some additional margin. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's an untapped gold mine right now, and I love that one of your features is kind of focused on that area. That's cool.
Right. So do you want me to show you some examples actually? Because digital
Absolutely.
workers is like this ethereal in the cloud kind of thing. So we find that actually showing people is where it
Yes.
really lands. And as I say, some of these examples will be middle and back office. Why should your recruiters themselves, the sellers, care about this? Well, it's actually speed to the dollar a lot of the time, because you'll see as we go through this. But a lot of what we do is, as I say, in the areas of onboarding, credentialing, etc. So if we can automate that, we can make the placement more quickly, which means that the candidate is bringing in the revenue for the staffing agency much more quickly too, right?
Absolutely. And it's a better experience for the client, the candidate, and your back office administration team that usually has to deal with whatever is handed to them. So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, show us these examples. This is what I was excited about.
Okay, great. So the first one I'm going to show you is for a US client of ours. It's a real life example. The issue they actually had, and this will just show the power of Dwight and the technology. The issue they actually had was they were unable to get information, new starter information from a CRM, in their case Bullhorn, into their pay and bill system, which was Paylocity. So they had 3 people do this task, and I'm pleased to say those people, now that we're live, are able to focus on much more value-added tasks. So the first thing you'll see here is when a new starter gets added onto the system, Bullhorn Automation in this case is emailing Dwight with the new starter details. Dwight's taking that information, and then what you're seeing here is logging in through the front end into the pay and bill system, so Paylocity, doing things like two-factor authentication. So one of the key things about this technology is that if there's no API connectivity between different systems, for Dwight, that's okay, because we can just give him login credentials the same as you and I. Now what you're looking at is he is creating from scratch this candidate. So again, moving information from Bullhorn, putting it into the pay and bill system to create the record. Next is going to go and generate the candidate engagement letter. And another key point you'll see here is, rather than people rekeying information, which obviously, as we all know, can lead to errors, again, Dwight is actually copying and pasting. So we can talk to a greater degree of data accuracy using this kind of technology. That's now gone to the candidate. Dwight's logging back into the CRM. He's going to go, okay, we know that Dries works for, or is going to work for, our client Chat Automation. Chat Automation wants these 7 background checks ordered. He's going to order the background checks, go into, in this case, Checker, download the background checking report, which is a PDF file, export the key information, put it on an email, and send that back to the recruiter. So it's a really good example of, here you have one process in and out of 4 different systems that, as I say, was the job of three people to do, but these systems don't naturally talk to each other. And that's really where we see the application for this technology being the strongest, is where, in between the cracks, if you like, of the tech stack, where typically you will have human effort doing these kind of mundane, data entry type level tasks, is absolutely where this plays well.
That Honestly, that's really cool. And one thing I wanted to call out that I thought was kind of neat, and I don't know if it was just for video display, but down in the bottom right in that the kind of the chat box area, I saw essentially all the work. It was almost like not the
Yeah,
code per se, but it was basically calling out specifically what it was doing, and you could see that Dwight was working through a process, kind of a set of work instructions.
correct. Yeah.
I thought that was kind of neat that that showed up on the screen for anybody watching this. If you just go back and rewind, and you can see all the steps that actually Dwight was doing. But I got a question for you, Dries. Since Dwight is using a login to Bullhorn, does that require an extra seat? Does Dwight require his own seat for that, or did you just do that for demo purposes?
Yeah, so actually with Bullhorn, because we're a partner of theirs as well, we can call on the API. So we will always use the API first, where it's available. But then
Okay.
if there's no API that we can call on, what we're saying is, hey, yes, give us that extra seat, give him the login credentials, and we can still knit the two systems together, but through non-invasive integration through the front end.
So that's interesting. So essentially, in that case, that really is like a digital worker having a physical, license to your
Yeah.
ATS, in this case, Bullhorn, which I don't know who just said it, but I just saw a quote about it. I'm not sure if it was Elon Musk or Bezos or somebody in that sphere that just said that, make no mistake, inside of 5 to 10 years, we will have digital workers working right alongside, workers, human
Yeah.
workers.
And
Um,
listen, that's correct, right? It's not digital workers replacing recruiters. It's digital workers freeing up the recruiters to do what they're best at. So, there's a piece of work that the National Institute for Public Policy Research, I think it is in the UK, has done, which is looking at various different kind of roles. And the one area that they have highlighted that is going to be completely either replaced or augmented by this kind of technology is admin work. And so, what I say to people is this is not going to replace recruiters' jobs. However, when it comes to admin jobs, I think it will. And Dwight's living proof of that, right? But to your point, yeah, the reason why we've created him as a character is people understand this kind of digital worker much more than the technology that it's actually based on. We don't want to talk techie speak. We want to talk to there's a digital worker that's doing these tasks. But as you can see here, he's working 24/7, never calls in sick, right? So he never has PTO, never calls in sick, so you never have to worry about backfilling him. He's got a phenomenal attendance record, therefore, and you get these kind of efficiency gains because 24/7, you saw the speed of the process. On average, he's working 4 times faster than you and I can, so we get to that kind of 12x. And yeah, that's really the importance is we're automating these mundane tasks people don't really want to do. We were talking offline earlier about a specific client example where they are repurposing their team of onboarders, 10 different onboarders, onto different kind of roles. But Dwight, by the way, stands for Digital Worker Interface for generic human tasks. And that's the key. The last bit is key, right? He was going to look like Dwight from The Office, but we kind of bottled it in fear of getting sued. So hence he looks the way he does. The other key thing, again, these are existing processes we're taking. So your existing processes over your existing technology, that's key because actually there's very little disruption to your business when we implement Dwight. We scope out the process, we understand the logic, and then we just deliver him back into UAT and eventual go live. And then from a commercial perspective, we actually don't even charge any setup fees. So we actually look at the complexity of the process that drives commercially the cost of Dwight, which really is anywhere from $750 per month, depending on if that's an easy process, through to the more complex, which would be $4,500, $5,000 per month. And we basically spread the cost of the build over a longer term contract, and our clients just end up paying him that wage essentially on a monthly basis.
and I remember when we spoke about that initially, I thought that I liked how you correlated it, right? Because a lot of softwares out there, they'll charge you kind of a flat monthly fee. or high implementation costs, and it seems very very SaaS, right? Because that's the model for the SaaS industry. However, I do like that you build it in a way that seems very relatable to if we were going to put a human worker in that role.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, if this is somebody doing this job, this is how many hours it would take, and this is what I would have to pay per hour or
Yeah.
salary, and this is what it would cost per month. And like, so I like how you do that. And I will tell you, as an owner operator in this industry and someone that has been barraged with all of the implementation cost to implement pieces of the tech stack, it's exhausting. And sometimes it's like, I don't know if I want to pay all this money on the front end to see if this thing doesn't really even work, right? So
Yeah.
the fact that you kind of de-risk that for staffing owners and you put it into like, hey, we're going to make this commensurate to the work that you want Dwight to do. And
Yeah.
if it's kind of a lower end, generic set of generic human tasks, then it's going to cost you less money. But if you having Dwight do a lot of stuff and replace a lot of FTEs, then it is going to cost more because he's got to do more and needs more bandwidth and all that, just like you would if you were scaling a human workforce. So I actually really I think that's a novel approach to it, and
Yeah.
I think it really is on brand for how you're connecting it to the human element of the
Yeah.
industry.
Yeah, and it's not just that actually. There's also some models actually charge transactionally, and again, then you don't even know what the cost is actually going to be.
Yeah.
So it's a set monthly fee. The it's actually less about the volume that Dwight deals with. More often than not, it's how many systems. So if we have clients that have 20 VMSs he needs to go in and out of, that in our world actually equals complexity. And then
Yep.
the last point, Dan, just to reiterate as well, as an owner operator like yourself, it's also the disruption to your business, right? Of replacing a CRM or whatever it might be. That's hugely disruptive to the operation. With us, that's not the case. It's just existing process over existing system.
Yeah. I, I'm sure you're going to get to this, but I've got to call it out now just in case you don't. Uh, One of the biggest gripes about salespeople, specifically salespeople in our industry, is they don't log the information. Like
Right.
they like being out talking, they like doing all of that stuff. They'll do the sales work, but when it
Yeah.
comes to getting the information into the softwares, and sometimes it's just one ATS, sometimes they're using, a HubSpot or a Source Whale or something, some
Yeah.
other tool that plugs into their ATS. Um, so do you have an application that might actually help salespeople get all their administrative notes and paperwork and all that stuff organized and into the system?
Yeah, as long as we can point Dwight to where the notes live. So if it's different recruiter by recruiter, that's harder. But if all of the notes, let's say, on this, for example, you and I both use the same note taker. And actually, when I joined, I thought it was mine, but it turns out to be yours. The AI note taker, if it's taking notes and then putting it somewhere centrally where we can point Dwight to the data, then yeah, we can capture that information and turn that unstructured data into structured data, maybe in one of the CRM fields.
Interesting. Interesting. So I want to do a sidebar because this is not specifically staffing related,
Okay.
but it could be because there's starting to become a bigger groundswell of like sales and marketing integration and kind of marketing supporting better sales enablement. So let's say you did that. Let's say you actually had a salesperson that was creating content, right? And they were very good at speaking, but they created content, maybe video or something, and it did have transcription services with the Fireflies or whatever. Could Dwight go in there, capture the transcript or the notes, and then go put it into like one of these tools that repurposes kind of written content into all sorts of different like social media posts? I think Alfana is one of them, ChatGPT, obviously. Could it like
Right.
do that and then create all this like the whole litany of like social media posts to actually give to a salesperson that's looking to augment their personal brand?
Yeah, so not one we've done yet, but we can take information from over here and put it over there. So that bit, I would say absolutely yes.
Interesting.
Where probably you still want the human effort though is okay. What once it's already gone into ChatGPT and it's generated something, you probably still want eyes on, right? Just to make sure it
Yeah.
is as you want it before the posting happens. So as to how useful that is, given that it would still need to be broken up with the human still in the loop, I'll leave that up to the viewers. But as I say, in theory, we can take information as long as we have login access or whatever from over here and put it over there and click a button for it to go and generate something.
Interesting. Interesting. I definitely I actually want to talk offline about it because we're putting together a product staffing dashboard that really is taking like key data out of an ATS and plugging it into kind of a digital user interface,
Right.
the dashboard side of it.
Yeah.
Um, and not every software has the best APIs or is the easiest to pull that data out of.
Yeah.
Um, so if there's a way to integrate Dwight into that staffing dashboard platform to make it easier for
Yeah.
users of that. Let's talk offline about that. That's fascinating to me. There's so many
Yeah.
use cases with this here.
And actually, we've just put a client of ours live on Monday, Jackson Healthcare, where that is the scenario. We go into the CRM, we extract information, and then they had an in-house system that they use for something. Obviously, I won't share the full details, but that's where they were keying in information. And so Dwight's taking the information from over there, logging in over here, and entering the information in the right area of the system.
That's fascinating. That's fascinating. Okay, well, I don't want to take us down a rabbit hole any further.
No,
What
that's fine.
what other use cases do we want to highlight that you're already kind of in market with?
Yeah, so I mean, an absolute key one is credentialing, right? So for us, in terms of our where we fit quite well is high volume and or high complexity. And here now we're fusing two elements of what we do. So you can see the conversational AI piece, our chatbot. In this case, it is in nursing, funnily enough. So the candidate's uploading their NCLEX certificate, and then what you see is in the background, Dwight has gone into Nurses, the credentialing platform for the sector. He's going to find the candidate, ironically is going to tick the I'm not a robot reCAPTCHA and then go and download the license pertaining to the candidate, go back into CRM and upload it against the candidate record. So that whole kind of
Boyd is crafty right there.
licensing, credentialing, re-credentialing as well, actually looking at, okay, Dan's license is expiring next month. I need to email Dan and get this information and then in the background go and do these checks. Again, they're all logical processes, if this, then that, with the trigger of an expiry date in that case. They're the kind of common use cases for Dwight. And then other areas are looking at things like business rule validation. This is a very specific example of that, but really anything where we need to validate data, Dwight can also do. So here a recruiter's made a placement in Bullhorn. Oftentimes that needs to be checked by maybe the team leader before then the contracts are generated. Here what Dwight's doing is extracting the information on the placement, comparing it against the business rules, and then we'll email the recruiter back with a thumbs up to say, hey, Dan, your placement of Dries, all good, we can go and generate the contracts, or no, thumbs down, you need to go and sort this area out. The recruiter goes in and sorts it before the contracts get generated. Another common use case we come across, most people, if you're in temp, you'll have either VMS portals or you have timesheets, and a lot of the time data will come through that way. However, we also have the tail of the timesheets that oftentimes come in via email, could be an image attachment, could be a PDF. And what you're seeing here is we can download that attachment, read the PDF, for example, put it in a highly sophisticated piece of technology we call Excel, and then that can get pulled into the pay and bill system or just directly be populated in there. And then the other example, two more just to give you, Dan. The other one is VMS, which we've already spoken about. This could be both the postings of placement. So when a requirement from a VMS comes in for a placement, actually, oftentimes it's quickest trigger wins. So Dwight has the ability to read, say, that email notification, go into CRM, find the right candidate and do the posting. With some CRM providers, you get that out of the box. And I would say always go out of the box first. We want to automate the areas that aren't available off the shelf. But then another area that no one seemingly has solved for yet is the actual time extraction, right? So actually going in 12 o'clock on a Tuesday, we need to run the weekly payroll. We need to get all of the time information out of the various VMS systems, do that validation piece to make sure is at the rate we had agreed with the client, and then go and put it into the pay and bill system. Again, that's something we can generate with Dwight. And then this is a CRM in the UK called Vincere, just to show you another example, but here we're extracting invoice data for the purposes of going to generate the invoices. So just some of the use cases. And as I say, our technology is solely focused on staffing agencies. So we have, things like reference requests, for example, coming in, reading the email, drafting a reference request response, and sending it out with the right information from on the candidate out of CRM. They're all the kind of use cases that we solve for.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. And kind of thinking about something that you said earlier with the whole if this, then that, and looking at expiration dates. If you if a kind of an agency that's primarily based on contractors that have
Yeah,
definitive end dates, like Dwight, I'm assuming could basically be scanning for those kind of fast approaching or near approaching contract end dates, or assignment end dates, and automatically trigger a workflow where one, it might notify the recruiter, but two, it might even reach out to the client and say, hey, we have our records indicate that, John Smith is his contract is coming up on November 30th or December 15th or whatever the time frame is, would you like to extend John Smith beyond this date?
yeah,
And then, and then if it's like yeah, we would, okay, great. They can maybe even find the terms and then update the assignment data and then notify the recruiter of what happened. Or if it's a no, great, we'll let the recruiting team know and John Smith know, and they can actually start working on redeployment of John Smith.
correct.
And
Yeah,
that would be, I think that would be great because sometimes it gets lost. Recruiters are busy trying to fill orders, right? It's hard. So
yeah.
sometimes you might, the ending assignment might slip through the cracks.
Yeah. And again, back to what we discussed at the top of the call, the upsell or the resell almost, right? Easier than starting from scratch. So, but again, I would stress though, Dan, as per our first example where you saw Bullhorn automation was actually the trigger to then kick Dwight into action. If you can do these automations off the shelf with the automation tools within your CRM, do that, but really focus Dwight because he's not the cheapest. Focus Dwight on the areas where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. So typically for us, that will be, we see people looking at Dwight from I want to grow without growing, i.e., I know I have an area in my business over here. We're continuing to grow. We're going to need more people. Consider a digital worker bot instead of having to hire more people, particularly if it's those kind of logical admin type heavy tasks. Or actually, hey, we're under pressure. We have a big compliance team or whatever we could do with repurposing those guys onto something else. And then we're talking about using Dwight as outsourcing 2.0. So more of a cost saving technology as opposed to maybe offshoring to the Philippines or something like that.
Smart. Smart. I appreciate you saying that to say, hey, don't jump to Dwight if, one of your current tools will get the job done. That's I appreciate you saying that to our audience.
Yeah, because listen, it's hopefully people would agree it's exciting technology, but people can get overexcited and they're like, okay, can we automate this over here? The answer oftentimes is yes. But then if it's taking someone 10 minutes every other week to do that task, then yes, we can. But actually, is it worth it from a business perspective, business case perspective? And the answer will probably be no, right? So we always encourage people look at the business case first, maybe focus on 2 or 3 key areas where you know that you can repurpose the FTE onto other things. Let's focus on where that business impact is. And we have a land and expand strategy with our clients. One's gone live yesterday. We're scoping the next one on Friday already for them. So it's really what we want to do is let's get Dwight into your business, get him adopted, and then it opens the kind of world of possibilities within that organization, and we can always scope for other processes later on down the line.
Smart. And I think that it really is what you just summed up is really how people should be approaching technology and automation right now, because we've historically been a kind of a tech laggard industry. And now with how much it's hitting mainstream, I think there's more openness to adopting it, but we're not always quite sure how to do it and the approach. So I really appreciate that summation to say, hey, consider the business use case first and then think
Yeah,
about, is it worth it? Because just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should do
right.
it. Yeah.
And the reality is, if we go back to 2022, boom for most staffing agencies, a boom year, right? And it was easy to buy technology because it looked good, it looked shiny, and we thought we might have use for it.
Yeah.
Those times in my book are gone. So that's why we always say, hey, think business case first.
Smart. Smart. Well, these are great, man. What else do you got in store for us?
I mean, that's really it for now. We are working in terms of roadmap. We're looking to infuse our technology more with You've probably seen in the news, AI bots, etc., coming into this as well, which, as I say, we will then look to harness and bring into the sector and infuse this technology, which is robotic process automation technology, with the AI bots to have that kind of agent work alongside the automation, working together in sync. But more, maybe that's for another time, Dan, when we have more clarity as to some of these use cases, because you can talk about technology till you're blue in the face, but what we found is showing the examples is really where it starts to hit home for people. So I don't want to talk about what's over here in the ether. I prefer to practically show you it when it's ready.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, and I appreciate that approach. And Dries, if anybody's out there and they're like, "Man, this seems really cool, but I'm not quite sure it would work for me and the challenge I have," there you go. It's like you're just one step ahead of the game. I was going to say, how do they get in touch with you to really take a closer look at Dwight and learn to see if it's a fit for what they need?
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions, then there's my LinkedIn profile. My mobile phone number's there as well. I do have a US one. I probably should have updated that. But for those of you that use WhatsApp or just text me, but certainly on LinkedIn, you can find me. There's my email address. And equally, you can email Dwight with any questions or any contact details. Our website is www.chat-automation.com. And again, if you want to have a look, there's some more explainer stuff there. Feel free to contact us through that route too.
So if you email Dwight, is there any human involvement or is it legitimately Dwight corresponding?
It's like magic, but no, it just forwards on to me.
I was gonna say, oh man, this is just like next level. This is great. Okay. Um, no,
We're
I
not
love it,
quite
man.
there yet.
This has been great. I really do think that what you're building is really important, and I like the fact that you're hitting in sort of the middle office, back office, compliance, credentialing, and those tasks that are really, really important that need to be done. But they do take time away from the producers being able to do really the money-making tasks.
Right.
We need to focus on that more now than ever. So I think it's a cool tool, and I appreciate you building it.
I appreciate you having me on as well. Thank you.
All right, folks. Well, until next time.